Very good afternoon to you, sir, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Let's perhaps start off with what this drop means for us as a country. Is there any cause for alarm?
All right, let me start by saying that Transparency International is a non-governmental organization which runs those corruption perception index. And these index are purely perception in nature. They are actually not based on factual information, though of course they look into consideration certain factors. And perhaps I should introduce to you some of the factors that they normally look into consideration for you to be able to make some assessment as to why countries, because it's not only Namibia, so many countries, including the toppest one, has also dropped by 1 point if you look at what they scored previous year. Okay, in our case now in Namibia, you know that our government has made very progressive anti-corruption measures that have been introduced. You know, we have a robust public procurement law, we have a whistleblower protection, and we have also a national anti-corruption policy, the strategy which has been developed by the Anti-Corruption Commission. We have some other laws like Prevention of Organized Crime Act and many other laws. All right, some of these measures were just recently introduced, meaning that when some of these surveys were carried out, those measures were not yet implemented. But we need also to understand that we are still lagging behind in terms of some of the necessary laws that needs to be put in place. To date, we don't have a law on access to information, and we needed to have a law like that. The other factor that is mostly considered as well when these assessments are done is also the economic performance and the distribution of resources in the society. When you have a society which is still characterized by a vast inequality, then it's also a factor that affects the assessment of the thing. Yeah. There are so many factors that are taken into consideration. It's not only a question of whether there are anti-corruption laws, there are agencies in place. That is one of the factors, but there are also other factors.
Now, you said that Transparency International is, yes, indeed, an NGO, and the way they rate us on this index is not factual. So why is it taken so seriously then, if it's just a mere perception by Transparency International? Why does their perception or their opinion matter when it comes to the rating of countries and the corrupt activities going on in different countries?
Yes, actually what happens is that they seized the opportunity 25 years back, because they started a long time ago. And as a NGO, you know, these developed countries were always willing to pump their money, as you know that they always want to pump their money in this civil society organizations. So
you're saying Transparency International has got some sort of an agenda on developing countries, or what exactly are you saying?
Well, I would not necessarily say that they got an agenda, but what I'm saying is that the formulas that they are using, they will never openly introduce to you those formulas. They will simply tell you that among other things that we take into considerations are X, Y, Z. But then, of course, if you look at their index, the developed countries are always the toppest. And the developing countries are still or always at the bottom, like now sub-Saharan country.
Yeah. So what can organizations like the ACC do to counter that and say, well, this is what Transparency International is saying, but in actual fact, this is where we are in the fight against corruption?
Oh, yes. You are very right. The Anti-Corruption Commission cannot be quiet about that one, and that is what we have been aiming all the time. If you look at how Namibia was ranked before the Anti-Corruption Commission came into existence, it was among the categories of corrupt countries. But as we are speaking now, Namibia is among the least corrupt countries in the world. Namibia in the world, among those 180 countries that has been ranked now, is taking position 53. But then, on the African continent, Namibia is taking position number 4. On the SADC region, Namibia is taking position number 3. You can see that this is a good progress, a very good progress. And what we did is that we realized that what we need to do is to come up with a national policy that we have just introduced. A national policy so that all the institutions, public sector institutions, private sector institutions, can jointly contribute to the fight against corruption.
Now,
yes.
just briefly, lastly, the ACC has constantly still comes under fire from members of the public who say that the ACC doesn't necessarily go after what they call the big fish. They always go after the small ones. Is this public perception misconceived? Is it misplaced? Why would people say that?
Okay.
And what is the ACC stance on that?
It's good that you are saying that it's a public perception, no? Because the perception will remain a perception. And the other thing that we need to understand is that when you talk about the public does not really know the difference between what is that needs to be done by Anti-Corruption Commission and what is that needs to be done by the administrative institutions themselves. Anything the public feel that is not morally right, the perception is that Anti-Corruption Commission is responsible to correct that wrongdoing.
But mind you, this perception is also coming from very well-educated, well-informed individuals who know what they're talking about. So,
yes.
are you saying that the members of the public are delusional, that they don't know what they're talking about, or what is the stance of the ACC regarding that perception?
Thank you. I would not deny that some of them are academics who are making their perception. It's good that they are academics. But you see, what has not been appreciated all along is the mandate of the Anti-Corruption Commission, the law which set up the commission. You know, the offenses are clearly defined in the law. But then for the public, any financial irregularity, whether it is administrative in nature, the public think Anti-Corruption Commission needs to come in. Anything relating to what they read about is money laundering, they think Anti-Corruption Commission needs to deal with it. But you know, all the offenses are established or criminalized by certain legislation. Like, let us go straight to cases that the public is always complaining about. SME Bank, which is a money laundering case. And as we are speaking, the Namibian police is investigating it because it falls under the Prevention of Organized Act, in terms of which the investigating agency is the Namibian police. And there is even a unit dedicated to deal with money laundering matter. But you remember that the public will not really understand these differences. We only come on board when the leading agency, you know, feel that there is now a need for this agency to actually team up on this particular aspect and deal with us. And the public always sometimes, maybe because of lack of understanding, or sometimes they do not also follow, no matter how much information you give to the public. When you tell the public that, no, something is already being handled in court, or it has been done, or we have investigated and we are just waiting for a decision to come out, public is not ready to listen to all this.
Right.
As soon as they read the next article talking about certain amount of money spent, they think, oh, corruption is at work.
All right.
Yeah.
But I think members of the public will perhaps beg to differ, but it's been a great pleasure talking to you, Mr. Noah. Thank you so much for coming in, and all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.